Hello History 206 students, my name is Dr. Matthew Laubacher, and the purpose of this video is to give you an overview of primary and secondary sources and how you are going to be using them in the course. So first off, a primary source is a source that comes from a period of study. In other words, it is a document, a picture, a photograph, a historical object from the past. So for example, Washington's inaugural address could be a primary source, or the lithographs done by Thomas Nast to spotlight corruption in New York could be primary sources. Okay, so primary sources are sources from the past. They let us know the mindset of a particular individual at a particular point in time, as well as cultural context. Important things. A secondary source, in contrast, is a source that's written by a historian about the past. Okay, so a secondary source is an article or a book written by a historian about the past using primary sources from the past, of the past area of study that they're examining, as well as other secondary sources, what other historians have written about that period of time in the past. You are going to be using both of these in your course starting in week 3. So on your week 3 discussion board, one of the things you are required to do is to review one of a number of primary sources we have provided for you, just accessing it through that link. And we have sources for all of our groups, African Americans, Native Americans, women, and immigrants, throughout the period that's looked at from week 3. Note that these primary sources have dates, noting that they are basically historical sources. This letter to President Franklin Roosevelt was written in 1944. In other cases, they have more recent dates because they're part of an oral history interview. Okay, so please be aware that interviews about a person's experiences about the past could also be considered a primary source. So you're going to be using these primary sources on week 3. The next place that you're going to be using primary and secondary sources is on your papers written in week 3 and week 5. So for your final paper, you are going to be writing about the history of your group in U.S. history over the period of time in the class, and you're going to be using 2 primary and 2 secondary sources. Since your week 3 assignment is a preparatory assignment for your final, you need to select those primary and secondary sources in week 3. You might be thinking, well, how do I select my primary and secondary sources for this assignment? So we have a primary source research guide for you in the library. So if you follow this link, it'll take you to different primary source resources that have been compiled in the library. So you can either use the sources that were available in week 3. I'll show you a couple other sources in just a moment, or you can go to the library and select primary sources. For secondary sources, again, I would recommend going to the library. Because secondary sources are articles or books written by historians, the best place to find them is through the library or through a resource online like Google Scholar. You should not be using history websites like history.com as secondary sources. They are not. Secondary sources, again, are written by a scholar, and they have a thesis, and they are about a period of time in the past using other primary and secondary sources. So we have a number of resources you can go to, both journal articles and ebook. You can, of course, use the Library One search, but we also have a history research guide for you in the library itself. To get there, click on Getting Research Help, Research Guides, and clicking on History. If you click on this link here, it'll take you to the primary source research guide that I already showed you. This will take you to a secondary source research guide for 206, or you can click on the history button and have access to both. Okay, so this gives us a good overview of what secondary sources are. So again, if you're confused, they'll be here. With regards to where to find secondary sources, we really recommend using the JSTOR database. Most history journals have their archived editions in JSTOR. So anything from 2 or 2 or 3 years old all the way back for 100 years, these articles are in the JSTOR database. One thing to really look for secondary sources, you want current sources. So you want something that's written in the last 30 years or so, preferably the last 10 to 20, but within the last 30 years. So again, what are secondary sources? Secondary sources are accounts of historical events after the event took place, written by a historian. Where can you find them? The UAGC library. Okay, again, you can use the OneSearch or you can use the JSTOR database. A final place you can find primary and secondary sources for your paper is in the final paper support page, which you can find in the week 3 assignment. Just scroll down to where it says, if you need help finding events or sources, refer to the final paper support page. So you click this link, it takes you, you can go back to the History 206 timeline if you like, but also say you're writing, your final paper is going to be on women, you can click on women, and it has a number of primary sources that you can use here, as well as a number of secondary sources. So there's a number of resources for you to use within this class to get you to your primary and secondary sources. So let's summarize. What is a primary source? A primary source is a source from the period of study. So if you're looking at the Depression, a primary source is something that was written during the Depression or is an image from the Depression. A secondary source is a source written after the fact by a historian that is published in a scholarly journal that has a central thesis. All right, so that's a good overview of primary and secondary sources. If you have any questions about this or anything else in the course, your best resource, of course, is to reach out to your instructor.